All right, here we go. We have Moe Gangat, a.k.a. Lawyer for Workers. Welcome to VladTV.
Yes, sir. What up, Vlad? It's great to be here.
Well, listen, man, we've been seeing you for a while now. I mean, you've been posting on Instagram about various court cases. I think the Tekashi case was the one that kind of got a lot of people's attention. But, you've actually commented on a lot of different cases over the past year or so. But, this is your first time here, so I want to get into your whole background. Now, what made you become a lawyer in the first place?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, Vlad, I became a lawyer because I couldn't really hack it in some of the other things that I tried. So I was thinking about medicine. I'm from India, and the running joke amongst people from India is your parents always want you to become a doctor. So I couldn't really hack it with the science courses. I started failing math in the 6th grade. My 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Masso, had these just huge, and I'd just stare at them all day. And once you don't learn math in the 6th grade, forget about it, because the 7th, it gets harder. I went to summer school every year. So anyway, law, I could kind of BS my way through it. If you just kind of come up with a clever argument, say some shit, you get that grade. That's why I went to law school.
You just threw lawyers under the bus everywhere with that statement. Okay, now you actually started representing corporations in the beginning, but you thought that was trash.
Yeah, I was at a very big established, what they call a white shoe law firm called Dewey and LaBeouf. I was working with some heavy hitters, a guy named Bernie Jackson, a guy named Jeff Kessler. By working with, I meant I was one of an army of associates who does their grunt work. And we represented crazy stuff, man. We represented the estate of Michael Jackson, and we represented the NFLPA. And, it's not what it sounds like, though. It's basically you sitting in a room going through papers until you can't go through papers anymore, getting some sleep, and then going through papers until you can't go through papers anymore. And so for me, that type of grunt work lifestyle, 6, 8 years, I'm not about that life. So, I kind of just washed out of corporate law and started bouncing around trying to find something else that might work for me.
Okay, and you mentioned the state of Michael Jackson, because we just interviewed Tom Massaro, who represented Michael Jackson in that big 2005 case. Now, what were you doing for the estate?
Oh, little stuff. When you're one of the army of associates doing grunt work for a major senior partner, they'll send you like a very discreet issue, and then you'll do a bunch of research on it. So, nothing where I could really speak intelligibly on the overall issues. You're a small cog in a wheel. That's what I hated about corporate law.
Okay, and then you went into employment law.
Not quite. So I started bouncing around a little bit. I did like what they call lifestyle law firms, where you do types of law that don't require really hard hours, and the money kind of sucks. You're making like $120,000 a year, living in New York City. That's not going to get you very far. So then I started kind of branching out, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go out on my own. And I actually started doing white collar crime, because I had a good white collar crime background from all the cases I had done before. So I was representing people who get caught with medical fraud. Basically, the medical device industry is a $1 billion industry in this country, and these pharmaceutical companies and medical device manufacturers charge huge markups, 2,000, 3,000% markups. So there's a lot of people who will go and get stuff made for another market like India, and they'll go bring it into the United States, or they'll get generics and they'll bring it into the United States. And the big boys here do a good job of lobbying and getting laws to prevent that from happening, and they call it counterfeiting, they call it gray market product diversion. So anyway, I came to find myself with about 8, 9 people who were my clients, who were ready to sort of have me serve them full time. And so I started serving them full time as a white collar criminal defense attorney in New York City.
Okay. Did it bother you at all to represent criminals knowing they're criminals, or not really?
Hell no. Listen, I'll tell you a case that an example of a type of case you might see. You got a medical product that 50% of this country needs at some point in time in their life. And that product in India costs $1 a pop, okay? Here in America, same product costs $20 a pop. People will go and bring that product to India, and they'll sell it to people in America for cash, people who can't pay with insurance because they don't have insurance, or their copay is too high, or it's been exhausted, whatever it is. So these people were not criminals, in my opinion. These people were heroes. I'll tell you what bothered me about it, though. What bothered me about it is defending them kept me up at night. All right, you got a guy who is making a lot of money selling product in this country. One day the feds come knocking on his door. Maybe it's the FTC. Maybe it's somebody from the government, and they're saying, you can't do this anymore. And oh, by the way, we're going to take all your money and we're going to lock you up for 5 to 10. And I'm that guy's lawyer. Man, that brother is calling you every day, every night. Results matter. You're not sleeping unless you get that good result. So that was driving me crazy. And that's when I said, I got to get out this life. This is too much stress.
Okay. And that eventually got you into employment law?
So I'm, staying up late at night, really stressed out because I got to deliver good results to keep these guys who were living very cushy lives. And one day out of nowhere find out, oh snap, I might lose all my money. I might do prison time. And I'm thinking I got to get out of that. And so the reason why I went into employment law, it's actually an interesting story. A woman walked into my office one day and she said, I got this claim. I've been working, more than 40 hours a week and I'm not getting paid the right overtime. So I don't know nothing about that. And she said, yeah, but, I spoke to someone and they know you and they trust you and I want you to take this case. I said, no, I don't know anything about that. I sent her on her way. And kind of typical, you tell somebody no and they can't think about anything but you. So she came back to my office the very next day and said, look, spoke to another lawyer and I feel comfortable. I want you to take this case. I took that case and I got paid on that case. And what I learned from that case is that you could be the best lawyer in the world, but if you want to make money, you're going to make way more money with something called good facts. What do I mean by good facts? You got to have somebody with a factual situation that's going to get paid in court. So, if you're walking down Times Square and somebody with a Bentley runs through a red light and hits you, you got good facts. You don't need a great lawyer to spin that tale, So somebody's going to come in and say, hey, it's walking down Times Square. This Rolls Royce ran through a red light and hit me. Here's the video camera. If you pay me. And I say, you know what? That might be up my alley.
Okay. So you started doing employment law.
So I started doing employment law because, good facts and employment, and this is sort of the difference between employment and other types of law. Good facts and employment, a lot of workers don't know about it, right? So if you have good facts and employment, you probably need a lawyer to tell you, yo, what they're doing to you, that's wild illegal. And so I saw a market opportunity, a informational gap where I could fill in that information, get my face out in front of workers, educate them when they have good facts to make a claim, and then maybe I could get some easy cases.
Okay, so you're doing that. But it seems like a lot of people, especially on the internet, got to know you from the Tekashi case.
Yeah, I was looking for clout. I mean, listen what I just told you. There's an informational gap in the market, right? The worker doesn't know that he has a claim. He wants to get a claim. TV spots are freaking expensive. Billboards are expensive. Pay-per-click is expensive. What's not expensive? Organic reach. So I try to get my clout up. That's what that was.
I mean, overall, did the way the Tekashi case ultimately work out, where he basically told on everyone and then got out in a couple of months, did that surprise you, or did you expect him to do actual prison time?
Well, he did prison time, right? He was locked up for a year while the case was pending. Man, did it surprise me. Yeah, while I was in it, it surprised me. I think while I was reporting on that case, what a lot of people appreciated about that case is I was very much like them, except I had this added layer of knowledge in the law. And I was a big fan. And, Tekashi, when he was Tekashi 6ix9ine, when he was affiliated, his story, his buzz, the electricity around everything he was doing was pretty unmatched. I don't think anybody has really hit that chord in the same way. And so I was enamored. I was covering the story very enamored. And I was pretty, I was surprised. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't look at it like a neutral observer with a bird's eye view, looking at, all right, here's what's happened in the past. Here's what people in these types of situations do. I was more a fan, also keeping along with the case and then giving my perspective. But it was surprising to me, man. He went out like a coal. I mean, he went out. That was bad.
So you think what he did was bad?
Oh, come on, man. Come on. This is the worst case. This is the worst case of snitching I've ever seen in my life. I don't think you'll ever see snitching on this level ever again. This man, why was Tekashi 6ix9ine so hot? He was so hot because everybody wants to be with the gangster rappers. and he was with the gangsters, and he was doing crazy shit, and we saw it in real time, and we couldn't get enough of it, and he snitched on just some crazy level. It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's living his life now, selling out shows, got big songs out. He pretty much ran with the whole snitch thing. And listen, a lot of people criticize us because we, at one point I said I wouldn't do a Tekashi interview, but, we interview a lot of mob guys who cooperated. So a lot of people said that we're hypocritical. And to a certain degree, I think they have a point. We do interview people that have cooperated with the law on the show before. The one thing that kind of bothered me in the case was that there was a video where he puts money up. He verbally says, hey, I got like 20,000 to go shoot at Chief Keef. As he's talking to Kuda, the shooting actually happens. And then he testifies against the guy he told to go do the shooting, and they even paid the guy, right? So he testifies against the guy to do the shooting. The guy is getting years in prison, whereas Tekashi walks away, which to me just kind of blew my mind, because I'm thinking, like, if you pay someone to do something, you're just as guilty, if not more guilty, than the person who does the crime. And yet you're able to tell on the person and walk away. It doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, it makes sense to me. This is a man who lost his identity, right? This is a man who we fell in love with because he was irreverent, because he said fuck everything, because he stood for the anger that so many people feel about so many various things, the injustice in the world, the morally bankrupt corporations. There's tremendous anger in society today. And his singular draw, his singular appeal was the fuck you to all of that. And we thought it was real, and it was real. For a long time, for a year and a half, it was super real. It was super organic. It was more real and more organic than we even really understood. And he took that identity, and for convenience, in the snap of a finger, he threw it out, and he said, I'm gonna take on a whole new identity. And the whole new identity is now this. I sat down with Tekashi. I asked him, I said, yo, I sat down with him?
Wait. You sat down with Tekashi. Why?
When he got out, and he wanted to do his comeback, he wanted to tell his side of the story. He started, I don't know where he started, but he went to a couple people. He went to Joe Budden. Joe said, nah. He went to Gilly at $1 Million Worth of Game. Gilly said, nah. And then, I don't know, there might have been a couple other people. Eventually came to me. He said, I want to sit down, I want to do an interview. I want to tell my side of the story. I said, all right. He sent a car. I said, nah, I'm good. I'll come to wherever you're at. He sent me the spot, and we did it. We tried to do an interview, but ultimately I wasn't feeling the interview because I felt like I wasn't going to have the creative control to really be able to tell the story, and I thought he would cut it in a way that I didn't like. When I sat down with him, there was an exchange, and I asked him, I said, yo, do you ever worry about the fact that you're not really making decisions, that you kind of go and whatever the people around you say, you've just kind of been going with, right? You got affiliated, and they said, yo, this is how we're moving, and you started moving. Then you got caught. The FBI said, yo, this is what you got to do. You started doing it. Now you're out. Like, where is the you? Where are you driving this? When are you actually in control? And who are you? What do you stand for? Or are you somebody who just goes with the flow wherever it's convenient? You're like water. You just move to the easy spot. I'll tell you, Vlad, I asked him about 10, 15 questions. We did about 4 or 5 takes before we decided it's not going to work for me. But when I hit him with that, he said, yo, hang on. Because that's a fact. That's a fact. How are you going to be affiliated? How are you going to do all that? How are you going to call out shots? How are you going to have people go take shots? How are you going to live that life, reach the fucking top of hip hop, have millions, billions of people fuck with you? And then like that, you're somebody else. And now you're going to try to go on a whole new vibe. Who are you at that point? Do you know yourself? Can you know yourself? And so to me, he's just a lost individual.
Okay, so he wanted you to do an interview with him, but he was going to film it and put it out?
Yeah, so I had put my camera up, and they're like, nah, we got the cameras. We'll give you the footage. I was like, all right, I'm a lawyer, Vlad. I'm a full-time attorney. I fucking really do law, right? Like I'm a heavy lawyer at this point. And I do this, because it's interesting. I did it for the Clout in the beginning. It's just interesting. So I didn't really understand. So I'm kind of just going with the flow, as it were, in this way. And he's like, nah, we got the cameras. And so it's like, all right, cool. And I tell you how it went. We did one take and he didn't like it. He's like, yeah, we got to do it again. He did another take. He didn't like it. Yo, we going to do it again. The third take, he starts shouting, telling his story without really letting me get my shit in. And I was like, I'm not doing it like that. I'm not going to sit here and let you just shout whatever you want to shout about whoever. Like, you're going to answer questions. It's going to be question and answer. It's going to be a normal tone. And then I realized, whatever the tone, I see what this interview is supposed to be. This interview is supposed to be a chance to legitimize Tekashi 6ix9ine's story, to make it acceptable to do what he did. He wanted to justify by saying, oh, they did this to me and they did that to me and they did that to me. And wouldn't you do what I did if you went through all that? And I realized that at a certain point, you could edit the shit out of this thing to do that. And I do not want to go down in the history books as the interviewer who somehow legitimized what he did. Because in my heart of hearts, you'll never legitimize what you did. If you take that rocket ship to the moon, you owe the people on that ship 100%. You don't then say, y'all are stuck here, I'm going to the next level. Nah, man, you got to rock with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy to actually do an interview while the other person is filming. We always, in our interviews, we'll let a person take a few behind the scenes shots, but there's always the rule that this is our interview, these are our cameras, this is our editing, these are our questions. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But this is a VladTV production, and we're not just going to let you put it out yourself and cut it however way you want. So yeah, I mean, I think that's very big of you, considering how high profile that was.
Oh yeah, a lot of my OGs in the law game were like, "Yo, bro, you fumbled it. You fumbled it. You try to get your clout up, and you didn't get that interview off. You fumbled the rock." But Joe ended up putting me on his show from that. He played my Instagram video discussing that, and from there, I got a little bit of a relationship with Joe. But it wasn't even about getting clout or anything. Honestly, at that point, it was like, "Yo, I'm a New Yorker. I'm from New York City. A lot of people rock with you, bro, and just know."
There you have it. There you have it. Well, there's a lot of big cases that are happening in hip hop right now, some of which you've actually touched upon on your Instagram page. But, I want to go ahead and recap them for people that, may not have followed you on there. One of the big cases is NBA YoungBoy. And this guy is so loved in the industry, but he's always getting in trouble. Like, I remember originally when he was first coming out, I think he had like a murder charge that he ended up beating. And through that time, there was always an arrest here, domestic violence there, and so forth. But it's now culminated in a situation where I guess there was a video shoot and they had found some guns, and he is now sitting in jail with no bail or no bond right now. So explain to everyone legally what led up to this and what's happening right now.
So YoungBoy, the big charge on him was a couple years ago. They're in Louisiana. Him and his boy are in the back of a car. They both got, I think it was a Glock, might have been some other pistol or a handgun on them. They pop out the car. There's other vehicles on the street. They're in a beef with somebody else, and these two guys pop out and they start popping off. Multiple rounds of gunfire in daylight on a street with other members of the public sitting in their car. He gets arrested on that, and he ends up taking something called a 10-year deferred probation sentence. Basically, they're saying, we're sentencing you to 10 years. We're going to put you on probation, however, so you're not going to serve any of that time. And if you violate, then you do the 10 years. And when the judge gave him that, she said, "Son, you're very lucky you're a bad shot. Because if you had hit anyone, there is no chance that you would avoid jail time. You would get significant jail time." And so he got out on that. And from there, you saw him get put back into home confinement. And that was when the judge said he violated. And that, I'm going to bring you back in. You've been getting into beefs at your show. There's this video of you at a hotel dragging a girl. There's just too much. You're not following the terms of your probation. I'm gonna bring you back in. So anyway, they put him on the home confinement. He's like on house arrest for a couple months. Judge brings him back in. She's like, all right, you're cleaning this up. We're gonna let you off probation. And he got, this is when he was in that brown suit and he was in the back of the truck. It's a great video. I love that video. And so he gets out, he's off, he's clean on the probation, he's all good. He's all good. He said, I'm leaving Louisiana, and he did. He bought a spot out in Utah, he had a place out in Cali, and then he got caught up in this. And he got caught up in this, which a lot of rappers got caught up on. I could name them. It's just so many. A Boogie, 5EO Foreign. There's so many of these guys. Lil TJ caught one of these. Just possession of an illegal handgun. So like there's like 10 big name rappers just this year who've caught and why, right? Because rappers need a gun on them. They need it on them. They cannot walk around. If you're alone, you can't walk around without it on you if you're in the rap game right now because you're from the street, you're affiliated, and now you're just a rapper. So they got it on him. They're catching these charges. YoungBoy catches a charge in the worst way because he has a felony record, right? He pled guilty when he went out that car and popped off those shots in Louisiana. He got that 10-year probation sentence. But he pled guilty, so he's got that felony record under the federal law. It's a very simple, bright line rule. Felon in possession. You cannot have a handgun if you have a violent felony. This man has a violent felony. Now check this out. He's not walking around with the gun on him. Instead, he's shooting a music video. And what was happening at the music video is they're just shooting it outside in kind of a nice neighborhood. I think it was like maybe outside one of his homes. And the neighbors or somebody sees what's going on. This is according to the cops. Maybe they're just following him. I don't know. Maybe they're just following him. But according to the cops, somebody calls in a tip and says, yo, there's a couple kids out here. Looks like they got guns on them. And so now the cops have what? They have probable cause to go and search these people because a report has been called in that we've seen people with guns. So the cops search the scene and they round up like 13, 14 handguns. Several of these handguns have adjustments on them. So they got like a handle on it that makes it easier to kind of do automatic. It's not an automatic gun, but now the recoil is less so you could pop off. They've got these extended drums. So it's like a 50-round drum, 100-round drum. Cops take all those guns, they get some money, they get some drugs, and then they start asking people like, all right, whose guns are these? People do a pretty good job of, claiming guns. Like, oh yeah, that one's mine. It's like, all right, who's got the Draco with the extendo? It's like, oh, I got that one. But 2 or 3 of those guns are not accounted for. So now you got 2 or 3 guns unaccounted for. What happens? The cops charge pretty much everybody with everything. As time passes, they snapped up the footage from the videos. So if you look at the footage on the video, you can see that YoungBoy is holding some of these guns. Now you might be able to argue it's a prop gun, but these guys, the same day they confiscated the gun, they got the video, you in the same clothes shooting on the same day holding that gun. It's gonna be hard for you to prove you were holding anything other than that gun. And the way these feds work, it's crazy. Music video or no music video, you're catching that felon in possession charge. You held it for 5 seconds, you're catching that felon in possession charge. Because they're clout feds, they want the clout. They want to get YoungBoy. They love to get YoungBoy. They hear YoungBoy's songs saying all this. They love to get him. So they're able to charge him. They say, yo, you got these 2 guns on you. Not only do you have 2 guns as a felon, but you got guns that have been altered with this extended stock, with this handle. And guess what? Under the federal laws, you got to go register that gun. So even if it's a registered gun, but it's not registered with these modifications, that's a separate charge. So now he's facing 2 guns, both felon in possession charges. Now he's facing 2 more charges for having these modifications. And it's real fucking serious. And it's real fucking unfortunate. Because if you're NBA YoungBoy, you run in YouTube every week. If you're NBA YoungBoy, you're the hottest young rapper in the game. There is no fucking way and you're NBA YoungBoy and you had all this history. And you've had multiple lawyers. And your team knows what's up. How in the fuck do you get around a gun, a real gun? How? And it's crazy because when they caught him, you heard the story of when they caught him, Vlad?
I think so. Refresh my memory.
This kid is just too real for his own good. This is that Dave Chappelle thing when keeping it real goes wrong, man. NBA YoungBoy pulls out of a posh California home. And I guess the cops are just sitting on his house. I don't know why. Oh no, they had a warrant. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's coming back now. They had a warrant out for his arrest. So what happened is the Louisiana police rounded up all the guns. They charged everybody with everything. And then the feds take up the case. But we don't know that the feds have taken up the case. So sometime back last year in September, he got charged in Louisiana. He gets let out. He's back living his life. Has no idea that the feds are now going to pick up his case. So the feds say, we want him for the gun charge. We're going to charge him with it under the federal laws, stiffer penalties. They get a warrant for him. Then about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, they go to execute that warrant. So they're sitting outside his house in Cali. He pulls out in his Maybach truck and he goes about a block and they light him up. They got a black and white LAPD car where they turn the sirens on and he takes off. He takes off for a little bit. Eventually he stops. He stops. This is according to the police. This is one of the craziest arrest reports I've ever read in my life. If it's true, it's a problem for him, but it also really speaks to the type of individual that this man is, his whole history, and he's still moving like this. It's crazy. He's in a Maybach truck. He drives off on the cops at first. Eventually he pulls over. He's in an alley. He's got like 3 squad cars behind him. The police now exit the squad cars. They're walking up to the side of his vehicle. They've got guns drawn on him. Out the PA, they announce, roll down the window. He rolls down the window. Stick both hands out the window. He sticks both hands out the window. Throw your keys outside. The throw your keys was first. They said, throw your keys outside. He throws his keys out. You see the key come out. Stick both hands out the window. He's got both hands out the window. Now, the officer fully approaches right up against his driver's side window. He's in the seat. What does NBA YoungBoy do? Exactly what you would expect him to do. He slams on the gas pedal and he speeds off.
Wow.
I mean, you had a 10-year deferred probation sentence, right? You got off on that. You're the hottest rapper in the game. You've had great lawyers. You got a whole team around you. You just caught that stupid gun charge. Now they're arresting you. You're going to drive off on him? He drives off on it. This is according to the police report. We don't know the facts. Hasn't been tested in a court of law yet. According to the police report, he drives off. Goes for a while. They give chase. They lose sight of him. He just he just pulls over somewhere, gets out of the car, and runs. Now he's on the run. He basically just goes and hides in like a property, like behind like a little shed or a garage. What the cops do is they set up a perimeter. They bring in the canines. They clear people out of the perimeter, and the canines start searching for people. After a while, the canine hits a positive response, and there you find NBA YoungBoy. Furthermore, what you find is another fucking gun in the Maybach.
Wow. Wow. And at this point, from what I understand, he's not given bond at all.
No, so he was, how it works in the federal court, so his warrant was out of Louisiana, and the prosecutor is the federal prosecutor in Louisiana. He's in California. So you get a warrant from Louisiana, you go to Cali, and you have the Cali authorities arrest him. When the Cali authorities arrest you, they're going to take you for your first appearance in front of a California judge. California judge looked at this case, magistrate judge, that's what they call it. There's 2 levels of federal judges. We don't have to get into it, but there's basically someone called a magistrate. He looks at it and he says, you know what? I'm going to give this kid a bond. I would give the kid a bond, right? He's a worldwide known recording artist. The federal law asks 2 things. 1, if we let this guy out, will he come back? The federal judge in California said, all right, well, he's putting up $500,000 in cash. He's putting up deeds for more than $1.5 million in houses. He's well known. He's got good lawyers. He has every reason to resolve this situation and get back to his entertainment career. I think he will come back under these conditions. So step 1, satisfied. Step 2, is there a danger to the community? Would it be so freaking dangerous to let this kid out? Well, let's think about it. He hasn't shown any penchant for violence since that way back incident in Louisiana. The gun was for a music video. The gun he had the other day in the Maybach, he didn't shoot. We have no reason to believe he shot anyone. None of these guns, the cops have confiscated them. None of them are coming back as tied to any murders. Okay, there's a very credible argument that NBA YoungBoy should be allowed to have a freaking gun on him at all times because he's a targeted rapper, for better or worse. It's the society we live in. You're not going to outlaw gangster rap, then stop outlawing gangster rappers from carrying guns. Anyway, California judge looks at her and says, you're out on bond, son. The Louisiana prosecutor got a hard-on for this kid. They're like, no. And they say, we want you to put that on hold. We're going to go to the judge in Louisiana, and we're going to see what they have to say about this. Typically, what you'd expect is that if one judge looked at the law and looked at the facts and applied it, another judge will look at the same law, look at the same facts, and apply it in the same way. That did not happen in NBA YoungBoy's case. Obviously, Louisiana is a jurisdiction that is way more difficult for defendants than California. Furthermore, when they went to Louisiana, the prosecutors had more time to assemble their case. It was the Louisiana prosecutor who has a deeper file on an NBA YoungBoy. I also thought in that case, NBA YoungBoy's lawyer should have came more aggressive, put up offers like, hey, we'll get private security monitoring this guy. You could put him on an ankle monitor. We'll have freaking 4 people posted outside his house to make sure he never goes anywhere. We'll cut the Wi-Fi off. We'll make it a radio-free zone. They should have got this kid out. This is a fucking gun charge. It's unbelievable, but we'll see. Right now, he's not out on bond. When you're not out on bond, Vlad, and you got federal charges, you want to make a deal, because who the hell is going to sit there for a year or two fighting cases while you're inside? It's whack.
Right. And I guess he hired Gucci Mane's old lawyer, the one that beat his murder case. And everyone was kind of quoting, there's a line where he says, I'm feeling like Gucci Mane in 2006.
Yeah.
And he went and got his 2006 lawyer that actually helped Gucci beat the murder case. If you were to guess, an educated guess, and this doesn't hold any weight at all, would you say that ultimately, after all this pans out, is he going to be able to go free with time served? Is he going to get a small amount of time or a large amount of time?
That's why we need criminal justice reform, Vlad. The federal sentencing guidelines and the system makes it an impossible situation for people. He has a great defense. Not a great defense, but he has a defense, right? I was shooting a music video. Under certain laws, you can argue that this is a place of business, that in a place of business, entertainment, that's not public possession the way the federal law is meant to criminalize the gun. But here's the reality. And he's got the lawyers who can make those arguments. And maybe there's people who'll come in and say, we had told him there were going to be prop guns and maybe he didn't know. And you can make all those arguments. But who the fuck is going to roll the dice on that? If you lose, you're looking at 5 years, 10 years. They stack those charges, 20 years. And that's the impossibility of today's federal criminal justice system in the United States. Even if you got a case that could be fought, it's not worth fighting when you look at the possible sentence if you lose. So for him, what I would expect is his lawyers will try like hell to get a bail modification. Good luck. The judge in Louisiana was a guy named Chief Judge Shelley Dick. When Chief Judge Shelley Dick has made a decision and you're going to ask him to change that decision, good luck. Good luck. And so he's going to sit in there, and I think he'll take a deal. And I think he'll take a deal that's going to have him do some time. And I think he'll probably have to get somewhere between 2 and 3 years. And I think with time served and programs that you can take while you're inside, I think you'll see him out. He got picked up in the beginning of 2021. Yeah, maybe end of 2022.
Okay, well, another high-profile case right now is Kodak Black. Now, Kodak Black recently got pardoned by Trump on his federal case, which I believe was a gun case, right? I think he had purchased some guns and didn't state that he was a felon, and those guns ended up being used in some crimes, and he got locked up for that. But the president can't pardon state cases, only federal. I remember when Boosie came on my show, he was upset that C. Murder didn't get pardoned as well, and I had explained to him that C. Murder was on a state case. There's nothing that any president can do with that. So Kodak Black gets out, and recently it was announced that he actually entered a guilty plea in his sexual conduct case. So, and a lot of people were like kind of going back and forth about this, and he even addressed it somewhat. What is your explanation of what happened with that?
There's no way of knowing. It's a small court in a small county out there. A lot of those documents are not public. It's not like the hearings can be attended. I don't have a good sense of it. If I had to take a guess, and this is purely a guess, I'm guessing they lost the victim's full cooperation. and that probably made it a more difficult case for prosecutors. And that typically when you see such a good result, either the prosecutors lost the victim's cooperation or, they came out too aggressive in the beginning and ultimately they didn't have a good case. But I will say for Kodak, he's so lucky, man. He's so lucky. He found, his lawyer pulled it's unbelievable. You got a presidential pardon, man. You're going to do another year and a half. You're in your 20s. You got a dope buzz. And it was going bad for him. Have you heard the stories of what was going on with Kodak in lockup down in Miami?
Yeah.
It was nuts. Like Kodak was living rough in lockup in Miami. And you could definitely see him not getting any good time. You could definitely see him catching more charges in there. You could see CEOs were messing with him because he was involved in an incident that ended up putting a CEO in a hospital. But anyway, his lawyer down in Florida, Bradford Cohen, ends up tapping in with Trump and Trump's people. This guy, Brad Cohen, also represented Lil Wayne, and he ends up getting Wayne and Kodak a presidential pardon on federal gun charges, and both those guys walk. Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in Donald Trump's America.
Right. The G Herbo case. From what I understand, he was tied to a case where someone was using stolen credit cards to purchase private flights and the such. And just recently, it was announced that he was facing an additional 5 years for lying to the feds. So tell me about this case.
So the case initially was that it was scamming, right? They're basically saying that all you guys are using fake credit cards, you're buying private jets, and you're booking expensive hotels, and you're using all these fake credit cards. And what ends up happening is you're using email, and you're crossing state lines, and so it becomes a federal charge. And the amount of money involved was so big. And so Herbo gets caught up with a couple other people, and it seemed like he might be able to defend the case, because he can argue, I didn't know, I was just staying in the suite. And he could say, I didn't know somebody else was in charge. And he's a well-known rapper. He's expected to be in these places and to have other people pay for stuff. What the hell does he know about any of this stuff? And so it wasn't terribly clear from the indictment that the feds put out, what do they have on Herbo? And if you look at what's happened in this case, the fact that they've now gone, first off, I don't know why he was talking to a federal agent. That was a big mistake. The new charge against him is that you lied to an agent. I don't know if his lawyer was present, but that should not happen. When you're G Herbo, man, and you get caught up in something, like, you need to have advisors around you that say, you shut the fuck up. You've seen the Pop Brothers at Law on Instagram. They always say that it's the best advice I'll ever give you as a lawyer. Shut the fuck up. Okay, and it's not just because you're going to incriminate yourself in the case you got. It's because of this shit. They're going to charge you with more stuff for lying or obstructing. Anyway, apparently he lied to the Fed. He's told the Fed, I don't know this other, it was about a co-defendant. He's like, nah, I don't know that. I never gave him anything of value. None of that. We don't have those types of financial dealings. And I guess what's come out in the course of the Fed's investigation is that he's obviously at some point transferred things of value and otherwise has business relationships with this guy. I will say, though, the fact that they went and charged him with this thing, lying, it's kind of like a ticky-tack charge. Like, what did you mean? What was the question? What's the meaning of that? So that kind of charge tells you a lot about how they felt about G Herbo's case. They didn't feel so good. They wanted to beef it up. They wanted to come at him with something else. And so my take on that case is, he probably had a defensible case, and the feds probably didn't feel so strong about what they got on him. He should not have been talking to anyone without his lawyer. And now he got caught up with this extra charge. We'll see, man. It's, charges like that, they're not made that often. And so what will happen on them, you don't know.
Okay. Well, a case that really kind of hit close to home was A.R. Ab, who recently got sentenced to 45 years. Ab was someone that's been on my platform a number of times. I really, really, really like the guy personally a lot. We go back for years. I've interviewed him. I've interviewed his crew. We've posted his music videos. I'm a fan of him personally and in terms of his music. And he gets caught up in this case. Everyone starts blaming me, saying that Vlad is the reason why, he's arrested. ARAB actually did some interviews saying that I had nothing to do. None of the interviews we ever did even came up in court. And so none of the paperwork has nothing to do with this case. But that part doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that someone who I respect a lot at 38 years old is getting sentenced to 45 years, getting out at 83, which is essentially a life sentence, the way I look at it. What is your take on this whole case?
I want to get his lawyer in a room. I want to talk to his lawyer because I don't know if you know what happened at that sentencing, but he pled guilty, right? He's got that plea in. Now he's getting sentenced. Sentencing is about 10 minutes of your life, maybe a half hour. If it's a long sentencing hearing, it's going to be 1 hour. It's 1 hour of your life at the fucking most. And what happened at ARAB's sentencing was a fucking tragedy. The judge, before he announces the sentence, says, "Young man, you've been sitting in my courtroom listening to the statements of the victims, listening to the prosecutor discuss your crimes, and the entire time you've had your hands folded like this. And the entire time you've been dismissive and jeering and snickering and scoffing. You don't look contrite. You don't look like you respect this process. I have the ability here today to give you a range of sentences. It could be anywhere from, here to 45. And what I'm gonna do, based in part on your behavior in this courtroom today, in this sentencing hearing, which is a couple minutes, Vlad, a couple minutes in your life, a drop in the bucket. Based on your behavior here today, I'm giving you the max." And if I was AR's lawyer, I gotta be in tune with my client, right? I gotta, before he goes in there, let him know that, bro, keeping it real goes wrong. You think you're gonna go in there, you're gonna stand tall, you're gonna thumb your nose at people because you don't wanna capitulate, because you don't wanna pander. But you know what? They won't break you if you act contrite. They'll break you if they give you another 20 years. That's getting broken. And so his lawyer, man, I don't know. That should not happen. A judge should never say that before he gives you your sentence, because you got to do one or two things as an attorney. Before you go in that courtroom, you have to explain to that man, this is 5 minutes of your life, bro. 5 minutes, nothing can happen in 5 minutes that's worth 20 fucking years. The other thing, if you go in there and you see us going left with your client, you see him doing this, you see him going, you see him doing that, you say, "Your Honor, I need 5 minutes, I got to use the bathroom." You take him outside and you tell him again, "This is 5 minutes of your life, bro." Standing tall in here is not worth it. Pander, they say fucking jump, you ask how high. Do that shit for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, and you're talking about giving back years to your life. I'd want to talk to his lawyer, man. When I saw what the judge said before he sentenced him, and then I saw the judge give him the max on the range the judge could have gave, my heart broke.
What was the low end that he could have gotten?
I don't remember off the top of my head. That's why I didn't say it right now. But
okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that was a tragedy, man. That was an actual tragedy. Do you feel like he has a good chance to appeal it and get that number reduced?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope it works out well for him. Like I said, man, I respect that dude a lot, and it broke my heart when I heard that. It still bothers me to this day. Still even talking about it.
He was real, man. He was in the community. He was really building. He was doing it organically. He was doing with the people he grew up with. He was a real one.
Casanova 2 times. An interesting case. Once again, we got blamed for this because he had done an interview with us a long time ago, some years ago, where he was talking about stabbing people in prison and so forth, which has nothing to do with this case, by the way. He ended up getting caught up for, I guess, a RICO charge. And I remember in the process of his bail hearing, a interview he did with Nick Cannon was brought up in the bail hearing, where they took a little snippet of the interview where he said, "I'm still Ape," which was the gang that they're trying to say that he's a part of. And his bail hearing got denied. And right now, he's still in jail. There's no bond, and he's facing a lot of years. Tell me about this case and what could possibly happen.
It's a very serious case. These are the same prosecutors that went after Tekashi 6ix9ine and his crew. It's the Southern District of New York. They have a track record of being basically the most aggressive, the most sophisticated, the most get-in-your-face federal prosecutor's office in this country. Obviously, you would have to think that some amount of time Casanova is going to do in prison in a case like this. I haven't followed the case too closely, but I would simply look at it and say, if you catch a RICO charge from the Southern District of New York, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I like the guy, man. We did an interview. We talked a few times afterwards. He had such a great opportunity to completely change his life around. He had a fan base. Rock Nation was behind him. It doesn't seem like he was gang affiliated like they're trying to say, but he still sort of, for whatever reason, kept some sort of gangster type persona in his music, and they're trying to use that against him. But on top of that, they had like 6 wiretaps. They had iCloud access, text message. There were social media posts that they used. One of his co-defendants actually sent a handwritten note for, explaining the rules of the gang, and there's guns and weed and stuff like that. So I hope it works out, man. I hope he gets let free, because
look, it's a serious charge. It's a RICO charge. All you can do if you're him or you're in that similar situation is don't talk to anyone, including your co-defendants, right? Don't call. They're tapping jail phone calls. You have undercover COs. Just don't talk to anyone. Do what your lawyers say. If everybody shuts up, if nobody cooperates, that is the best possible chance at a winning defense at trial. And the feds, the SDNY, for all their reputation, I think they're going to find that with Tekashi 6ix9ine, it was very easy to apply the pressure and get him to squeal. I don't think Casanova is built like that. I think they're looking at Casanova as the pressure point. Like, all right, who in this gang or who amongst this group of people can we put the pressure on? And Casanova's a different beast. He's not some guy who just decided, one day to live the life because it was convenient for him. He grew up in the street. And so I don't think that the SDNY will have as easy a time as they think applying pressure on him. It's anybody's guess what happens in that case. It's a crazy case.
Well, another person that I've interviewed a couple times in the past, who I respect a lot as well, is Ralo. He got caught up in a drug trafficking charge. They had found a bunch of marijuana in a private jet. They had followed him and they had pulled over the cars and basically tied all that into him. And they actually found him in the plane of the time, where the drugs were being unloaded and so forth, allegedly, according to the feds. He ended up pleading guilty recently. And I guess he's trying, a bunch of celebrities like Drake and so forth had written to the Biden administration to try to pardon him, because now in Atlanta, I believe marijuana is becoming legalized and so forth. And you're having a lot of people who were, in prison on marijuana charges in states where it's now perfectly legal, maybe not in those quantities, but still legal. I know, for example, I live in California. You can only buy an ounce at a time per day, which is not a lot. When you look at the Ralo case, what do you think is going to happen?
I mean, he's in. He needs that pardon to get out. Donald Trump showed us that, pardons can happen at any time and any reason. Pardons traditionally, they've always happened throughout the course of a presidency, but pardons traditionally have taken on a very symbolic sort of look. Typically towards the end of the presidency, the guy really starts issuing a lot of pardons, and he does it as a symbolic gesture to say, all right, we've been over prosecuting this, and these types of laws are too harsh, and this guy got a raw deal, and so you get a handful of pardons. But I think in the aftermath of the Donald Trump era, where he kind of showed you that there's no rules to this shit. If you have power, you can use it in whatever way you want. Just wield that shit. I mean, I think in the wake of Donald Trump, hopefully we can get some momentum behind just massive pardons for all these people locked up on marijuana charges. Why not? I mean, freaking people are becoming overnight millionaires on crypto. People are doing all sorts of crazy shit. Why can't we just let out all the freaking weed dealers?
I agree.
Why not?
I completely agree. You know, I spent years smoking marijuana legally until it became legal. I could have been busted all types of ways
For sure.
In between then. And, you know, I haven't. Well, free Ralo. I hope it does work out for him. I sincerely like the guy. We've had not only interviews, but personal conversations where he was just a very stand-up dude. And man, I hope he gets out, truly. Fujiano recently got 5 years for melting off his ankle monitor. And there was another charge that he was facing at the time. I remember we actually broke the story about how he, you know, took off his ankle monitor and went on the run. And I remember during that time, he's still taking Instagram photos and still going to events and everything else like that. But ultimately, they did catch up to him and he got 5 years. What do you think is going to happen in this case?
It's over. People are so lost. I mean, it's over. You got 5 years. His manager tweeted after he got the 5 years, Greene County just gave this man 5 years for taking off his ankle monitor on a charge where somebody else said it was their gun. The charge is over. Doesn't matter who said what. You're on probation. There's terms of the probation. Now, if you violate those terms, it doesn't matter what got you on probation, right? And he violated the terms. He took the ankle monitor off. He left the state of Georgia. And so the judge brought him in. This was last week. The judge said, 5 years. That's it. That's a wrap. You could try to appeal, but you know how that goes. I mean, there has to be a major error of law. There's no error of law here. The judge is free to give him the years. Or you have to have some new facts. What are the new facts? Fujiano, I mean, listen, it's crazy to me that people see that situation and say stuff like, oh, how can that happen? You took your ankle monitor off. You're on probation. This shit is real shit. You're a rapper who has clout. They love to get you. Come on, man. Like, we gotta get a little more realistic. I could be out here saying free Ralo, free Fujiano, free this, free that. But they give out years like it's fucking candy, and you better fucking act right.
Well, you know, when talking about, you know, retrials and appeals and everything else like that, Derek Chauvin was recently found guilty of second-degree murder, I believe.
Yep. Manslaughter, right, and a bunch of other charges to go along with it. The trial itself was very dicey because during the trial, I believe Maxine Waters made some statements about, you know, if this a non-guilty, you know, verdict, then people needs to get up and push back against the authorities. And I remember the judge made a mention that this might trigger a mistrial. But ultimately, he was found guilty. He hasn't been sentenced yet. But now the lawyer is arguing that he needs a new trial because one of the jurors was seen, I guess, at a George Floyd rally wearing a BLM t-shirt. So first of all, is there going to be a mistrial because of the Maxine Waters statement? I mean, I would hope not. If we're letting mistrials happen over that, I mean, that's a precedent that you're setting where every criminal defendant for the rest of time will point to that and pull any public statement and start saying, oh, you know, this person vilified murder. You got to let me get a new trial. Like, come on, man. Like, at a certain point, it's ridiculous. For me, the snowball effect of having a mistrial off of a statement like that, it'd be too much. You could never have a real trial.
Okay, now what about the juror wearing the BLM t-shirt?
I think the prosecution has a decent argument that it's one thing to be in support of Black Lives Matter. It's one thing to be in support of equality. If you disqualify jurors who believe in Black Lives Matter, you're not going to have any juror. If you disqualify jurors who wear BLM shirts, you're not going to have any jurors. The prosecution here is going to focus on the fact that this is not any BLM shirt. This is not any protest. This is specifically a protest about the victim in this case. That's a tough argument. That's a good argument.
Right. Well, I just want to correct you. Not the prosecution, the defense are going to argue that because the prosecution was against Derek Chauvin.
Correct. The defense they have that argument that you're literally at a protest standing up for the victim. And now you're a juror against, so that's tough. But the counter to that argument is the whole fucking country was at that protest. okay? And guess what? You want a jury of your peers? These are your peers. They're out there protesting you. So tough luck. And, this speaks to why it is so important that we have representation and diversity in seats of power, because this is a coin flip. Judge can do whatever he wants. He can just say, you know what? I credit this argument, new trial. Or he says, you know what? I credit this argument, no new trial. And it just comes down to that judge. It's crazy.
Well, Derek Chauvin, although he was found guilty, he hasn't been sentenced yet. How long do you expect the sentencing to be, if you were to guess?
I haven't looked at the guideline. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Well, but then on top of it, all four of the cops were, I guess, now being charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights. That part doesn't exactly make sense to me, because there's already criminal trials. I mean, there's already a criminal trial that's done for Derek Chauvin. There's 3 more criminal trials that are happening for the other 3 cops. What is this new thing that just came up?
So I think what happened was the initial civil lawsuit that was settled was with respect to the claim against Mr. Chauvin for the murder. I don't know if that settlement also covered claims against the other police officers for failing to act, for essentially being accessories to the murder. So I think that might be there, but I'm not sure.
Right. Well, actually, all 4 of them are being charged with this.
I don't know what's going on there.
Derek Chauvin and 3 other former Minneapolis police officers were indicted by a federal grand jury Friday on charges that they violated George Floyd's civil rights. A 3-count indictment named all 4 of them with failure to provide medical care as Chauvin pinned him on the ground for more than 9 minutes as they handcuffed Floyd, repeatedly said he could not breathe. Chauvin, Theo, and Kyung were also charged with violating Floyd's right to be free from unreasonable seizure and excessive force, according to the indictments.
I don't know what that is. That's weird, because indictment, that sounds like criminal charges.
Right.
I don't know how you bring a criminal charge for constitutional violation. That should be a civil charge. I can't speak on it. I don't know.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully Derek will get a lot of years,
yeah.
Which will set a message, will send a message to cops all around the country that this type of thing is not going to be tolerated anymore moving forward. It's been going on long enough. Cops have been killing Black people as well as other people and getting away with it for, centuries. And I think if Derek ends up getting 40 years or 20 years or something very significant, I think that it's going to make a lot of cops think twice before pulling out that pistol.
I'm with you, man. I share your hope.
Well, recently, Bobby Shmurda and Rowdy Rebel both got out. First, Rowdy got out, then Bobby got out second. I've interviewed Bobby before. Real cool dude. One of the coolest parts about our interview was when we talked about how Bobby actually took more time for himself in order to get Bobby Shmurda less time, which very few people will do out there. Now, both of them are out. And from what I understand, there is kind of a very extended set of probation for them while they're out, because there was like video circulating where Bobby was offered a drink and he was like, nah, I'm good. Or like he was given some shoes with kind of like blue Crip rags on it. And he was like, nah, I'm good. So explain to me where they're at right now and what they need to do to avoid going back to prison.
Well, they got standard probation conditions, and it looks like they both are doing a really good job of abiding by them. It looks like they got good teams around them. I'm very confident with how they're moving. I like to see it. It's a very interesting story. You mentioned Bobby took more time so Rowdy could take it. You never heard of anybody doing that. That's not a thing. That's not a thing, Vlad. You can't go to a prosecutor and be like, yo, let me get those years. I'll take those years. You don't have to give it to. That's not a thing. And what that speaks to, what that shows you, is the motivation behind the prosecutor. That, I get more years on Shmurda. Okay. Yeah, that's what I want. I want more years on this guy. I want more years on the dude with that #1 record. What happened here was Bobby and his crew, GS9 in Brooklyn, all this started off jail phone taps. And there was a guy, I don't know if it was a setup, because he had an obscene amount of phone time. Like this guy, if you look at the court transcripts and the records, you'd never seen anybody at Rikers get this much access to a phone. I think they realized that he's daily just having calls, checking in on all the happenings in East Flatbush, talking about, the timings of stuff. And I think they just kept giving him more phone time because he was talking so much. And what they were doing was they were connecting stuff people were telling him on the phone to real life events. So, he'd be on the phone with someone. They'd be like, oh, I can't talk right now. We run in a drill. And then there'd be a drive-by shooting around the same time. And the prosecutors would link that up and say, okay, this. So it all started with these jailhouse phone taps. And all these kids get caught up. It's a gang conspiracy indictment. And it was there's 5 prosecutors in New York, right? The 5 boroughs: Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island. But there's actually a 6th prosecutor, a 6th district attorney's office, as it were. And it's the special narcotics prosecutor. And they operate out of Manhattan. They have their own criminal part in the Manhattan Supreme Court. The judges in that part are known for being extremely tough, extremely fast and aggressive, and giving out football number sentences. So these guys end up in that part. And Bobby went through a couple lawyers. He had that falling out with his label. Why isn't his label supporting him with good lawyers? He ends up hiring Benjamin Braffman. That's the guy who represented Diddy on his gun charge. He represented Dominique Strauss-Kahn when Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the French prime minister, some ambassador, got accused of raping his maid. And so he's got Ben Braffman. And then also Ben Braffman's associate at the time was this guy, Alex Spiro, who went on to gain a lot of notoriety as being sort of Jay-Z's fixer. He helped with 21 Savage's immigration issue. And Spiro's a big name now in the hip-hop world. So anyway, back then he's got these lawyers. And Bobby goes to them, and I'm sure they were like losing their mind. Like, what? Bobby had been offered 5 years, and Rowdy was offered 12 years. And the reason why they wanted Rowdy on more is they had him as the shooter. They said, you were the shooter on some of these. They didn't have Bobby on none of that. That's why they gave Bobby the offer at 5. They gave Rowdy the offer at 12. And Bobby goes to his lawyers and he says, I want to take more years if Rowdy can get less. And they probably looked at him like, that's not a thing, bro. Like, that's not how it works. Like, that's your deal. That's his deal. That's just how it works. These are his crimes. These are your crimes. But the prosecutor goes for it. The prosecutor says, oh, wait, I could get more years on the number 1 artist? Okay. And the prosecutor actually agrees to take Rowdy Rebel from 12 to 7 and go Bobby from 5 to 7. They both get 7 years. They get out at the same time. That's unbelievable, Vlad. I've never seen or heard anything like that. That's not a thing. It tells you what's going on with the prosecutor. The prosecutor just has his eyes on that artist, and he's just looking for clout like everybody else. Crazy.
Well, we don't have to say free Bobby Shmurda or Rowdy Rebel because they're out.
It's stay
they're
free.
out. They're living their life, and unlike a Tekashi, everyone's embracing them. Everyone's praising them for standing up and not telling on each other and so forth. And it seems like they have a bright future ahead of them.
It has to be said, though, the praise is all good and he stood up, but it's not like there aren't people locked up on that conspiracy charge, and it's not like everything is just back to normal because these guys are out. There's a lot of people doing a lot of time, and there's a lot of pain in the communities. And so shit ain't that sweet.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Moe Gangat, a.k.a. Lawyer for Workers, appreciate you coming in and really telling the real of what's happening. Because in this age of social media and people do research based on memes and, all the conspiracy theory sites and pages that go out and, how misinformation just, seems to snowball. Like I had mentioned how there was a fake article about how, we got Arab indicted or we got Casanova indicted, which are absolutely fake, but people run with it. So to have someone actually come in as a real lawyer with an actual law degree and break things down and really, beyond the hashtags and everything else like that, really explain how things are actually working in the world of law, I think is absolutely priceless. And you have a new YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be starting to I've been on Instagram doing the 1-minute videos, and the response has been good, and people like to hear me talk about these cases and other issues, social justice issues. So I'm going to start being a little bit more consistent and doing long form videos on my YouTube. Check that out.
There you go. What's the address of the YouTube channel?
It's going to be, it's www.youtube.com/lawyer4workers. Thank you for that, Vlad. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming in. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.